So good morning, everybody. I'm gonna call this meeting to order, and I'm gonna do with a roll call vote. And call the town name, and if you can just state your name and present, and we'll do alphabetically. So starting with Dover
Kay Peterson, present.
and Medfield
Kathy Thompson, present.
and Needham. We may have to come back. Tim may be switching. Let's go to Sherborne.
Daryl Beardsley, present.
Okay, and now it might be looking for Needham. If we can get a vote to call us to order. Tim was literally in his car for a bit and then had said he was going to be at the office in 6 minutes. So we may have caught him right when he was walking in the parking lot. Texting him now. I know it's school vacation week here in Mass. Do people notice a difference in like the traffic and the volume of business? Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, I work from home, so I don't go a lot of places during the week.
Right.
But even just like driving to and from like daycare to pick my kids up, there's like nobody on the road. Yeah.
Yeah. How old are your littles, Megan?
They're 4 and 2.
Fun.
Yeah, they're fun.
Mm.
Yeah, I forget.
I was so excited today thinking like, oh, is this just summer traffic starting early? And then Monica told me in the office like, oh, it's vacation week for Massachusetts. Darn it.
Nope. Yep.
Zero traffic though this morning.
Yep. I like
I
that
lived in-
thinking, Sam. Ooh, go ahead, Daryl.
Oh, I lived in Cambridge for a long time. And in the summer, everything would quiet down. You could drive easily. It didn't take a lot of time. There were parking places. And every September or late August, I'd be surprised. And I'd
Yep.
set out to a meeting and be like, uh-oh, I didn't double the time, to
Yep.
get there. So
Yep.
funny that the brain just forgot
Yep.
or
Hi.
liked what the summer was.
Good morning, Tim. We're just doing roll call. So Needham.
Hi, Tim McDonald, present.
Excellent. Thank you. So the meeting's now called to order. There are no members of the public present, so we can dispense with public comment. And I have not completed reviewing the minutes for you all, so I do not have minutes for you to approve. So I am going to turn the meeting over to Arissa and Megan from BME to continue our strategic planning work. Thanks.
Thank you. Give me just a second to share my screen here. Okay. Perfect. Okay. We are at meeting 4, everyone. And I don't know if you know this, but there are only 6 meetings. So we have passed the halfway mark and we are moving and grooving, which is very exciting. And so today we have a couple things to talk about. Thanks, Carrie, for handling the roll call and call to order. Primarily want to just do kind of a final review of goals, objectives with some additions of timelines and owners of the task. talk a little bit about some of the early interview key takeaways that I have. To be clear, we have not finished interviews. We do still have some scheduled, and we're still looking to schedule a few more, but just kind of wanted to start talking about this so that nothing brand new comes up, since this will be in the strategic plan. Talk a little bit about reporting, and then we'll talk about some next steps. So again, just some of our objectives for today: finalize the goals and objectives, talk about key interview takeaways, schedule the interviews, and talk about the next steps. All right, you guys have got this down, and you've been a lovely group and are very nice to one another. So I won't read this, but let's go to the goals and objectives, which are in a different tab here. And so I will come over here. And so the last time we talked goals and objectives, we kind of talked strategic priorities, the 5-year goals, objectives, and activities. And this is sort of where we were. So since the last time we met last month, we have added some timelines, and they're very broad timelines ranging from year 1 to year 5. We have assigned some owners. Some of them have more than one owner. We've stuck to kind of role name here, but so you'll see that. And then we also made the changes that we gathered from our last discussion. Like there was a couple of moments where we wanted to build out the activities or adjust the goal a little bit. And so we have accounted for all of that here. And so I will go kind of strategic priority area by area and look at some of the goals and objectives and just give folks a second chance to chime in on any additional thoughts that they have on that goal or objectives. And then also just take a specific look at the timeline and owners, since that will be new information. This first goal here, I think, is the one that actually had the most change from our last conversation, and that was to develop sustainable methods for future record keeping that allow for expanded data collection opportunities. I think part of the reason that we had to make some changes about that is because we started discussing metric and what that looks like and how that will impact our ability to kind of pick and choose software. And so one of the things that you'll see here is that one of the objectives that we have in year 1 is truly just to explore the metric rollout and what that looks like and what the software looks like, and do the Q&A sessions and go to all the learning lessons, and just really trying to figure out what it is, what the cost benefit analysis is, and if it's going to work, and if it will work, to what extent will it work, and if it doesn't work, what does that look like? And so year 1 and even into year 2 is a lot of exploration, and you'll see that the shared services arrangement coordinator is here a lot with some support from the Needham EPI for some subject matter expertise, since we're talking about software and data collection. Any thoughts there? Okay, I'll keep scrolling down. And so the next objective is to actually implement an electronic record keeping system, metric and potentially others if needed. And so then some of the objectives to go along with that are securing grants and revenue to supplement the existing budget if needed, identifying any gaps left to fill once metrics adopted. I think we learned in our conversation last month that there's still a lot of questions to be answered about what metric will cover, what it won't cover, kind of what subject areas will need more software. And so really that year 3 and even into year 4 is just looking at what else do we need? How do we make this whole? And again, that falls with our lovely shared services arrangement coordinator, with some help from the assistant manager and some of the regional inspectors. And the reason that the regional inspectors are included in this is because, if it doesn't include food inspections or it doesn't include septic inspections or something along those lines, then obviously we'll need subject matter expertise involvement to figure out where that goes. Any thoughts there? Okay, I'm just going to keep going, but feel free to raise your hand, come off mute and talk, whatever works best for folks as we kind of move and groove through this. And so the last kind of piece of this, I think, data and software portions are building a more demographically diverse and robust set of data with a focus on building out the missing middle. And so you'll see year 1 is really just identifying some grants and potential revenue to support this. Year 2 is actually applying for the grants and receiving some revenue, and also identifying opportunities to add to existing data collection tools, and identifying opportunities for data collection outside of the existing tools. I don't think this one has changed very much, but you will see that in the timeline, we've built this out over a couple of years so that it can be really digestible, right? Like this first year might not be applying to 30 grants, but maybe it's just that we're finding some grants that could potentially fit the bill for what we're looking for. All right. And then next here, we're kind of diving into building out strong cross municipality partnerships throughout the shared services arrangement and starting to implement a buddy system for onboarding and identifying other strategies for onboarding new staff. And that is in year one. And we felt like that was a good fit since you guys have already been sort of doing that, bringing on Gail and others. And I think that you'll continue to build that out, but it seems like the work there has largely already been started, which is amazing. And so then the final one under this priority area is to develop and implement communication processes within the community. And so the larger goal is to expand public outreach to raise awareness of the health department programming and services. And we have kind of a tiered system here. The first being to review and update the web presence. The second being to identify some opportunities to develop or expand social media communications. And then in year two, thinking about developing some newsletters, which we wanted to talk a little bit about. And then potentially starting in year one, working on establishing a regular reporting cadence within each municipality to report to the Board of Selectmen, the town administrator, and other relevant folks. I will actually come back to this question that I have here, which is sort of, what are we thinking in terms of a newsletter? What does that look like? Are we mostly just thinking about a reporting system to the community at large? Or are we thinking about something else? And moving into environmental health, one of the big 5-year goals that we had here in environmental health was to set up cross-municipality training and knowledge sharing systems. These have not changed at all since the last we saw these. But we did put in here year one, and these would be continuous, right? So developing a folder to share vetted resources and research, that will be a continuous activity that's constantly getting updated and that sort of thing. And the same with gathering individual municipality assessments and data sources. So those will kind of be continuous activities that don't necessarily end in year one, but can start in year one. Next, we have developing and implementing standardized procedures for hoarding. You guys have started, I think, a lot of that work. And so year one looks like maybe identifying other groups and communities that are working on these things. Year one also maybe looks like identifying some online trainings. Year two might be hosting the trainings. And then years 2 and 3 are actually implementing the knowledge from the trainings, developing SOPs, making updates to processes. Any thoughts there? I'm taking the silence as a good thing because that means that we put all of your feedback from last month's meeting in well. Yes, okay. Okay, I think I saw your hand. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, you did. Just going back to the communication process, I was thinking as you
Yeah.
were talking about the regular reporting cadences or cadence with various groups in our municipalities. I would also wonder if we should add to that list a regular, it's not really reporting, but communication with our representatives in the State House.
Yes. Seeing no disagreement and even seeing, some claps in agreement, I'll just go ahead and add that in then.
Thanks.
Of course, thank you for your feedback. And Carrie, did I also see your hand up?
Yeah, thank you, Arissa. And Kay, thanks for mentioning that. Actually, I've started doing a little info gathering on who the different reps are. We started asking folks if they've met with reps. I think that's going to be an important piece of work that we want to be sharing, connecting with folks soon. So thanks for suggesting that. I had a couple of things. I think so on the data collection piece, let's start there. I'm wondering if it might make sense to two things, to add in a step of, let's identify what are the data points that we're looking for and make sure that everybody's in agreement on that. And then I'm wondering if we ought to think about moving the, seeing if we can add points to existing data collection tools up, because I think that's a low hanging fruit is that might be a place to gain some effort. And part of my reasoning for this is, again, low hanging fruit, but the other part is that I think we'll be in better position to apply for grants if we have a clear sense of what we're looking for. So that's that. And I'll pause, but I have one more on a different section.
Daryl, did you have your hand up?
Actually, Carrie could certainly keep going if you want to.
Okay. So I get my last comment then would just be, I'm wondering, as we look in order for the order of these, I'm wondering if we move the communications work first, because I think, again, those are and I can be a little linear, right? So as we think about our efforts, I think those are things that we could move on quickly, and we can improve as we get more data and get more clarity. But I think those are things that are we can take a number of steps early on, and it involves more than just staff, whereas some of this stuff is very much staff heavy. So, and that's all I wrote down. So I'll lower my hand and mute myself. I don't know if anyone
Thank
has
you.
any comments.
Thank you, Carrie. Daryl?
Okay, actually, it's a good segue. I was thinking about the communications and perhaps the concept of on our town website having a link to Charles River Public Health District. Then I also thought about what would be appropriate to include in that. And these are details to work out in the future. And the reason I was thinking about it is when we were in the process of ordering the additional test kits, not so long ago, I don't remember exactly when that was, last fall perhaps, someone had overheard our conversation about it, and wanted to know when they were coming in. And when they didn't come in the next day, which we told them it would not, they wanted to call shared services directly. And we're like, no, please do not do that. That, it's just an unnecessary burden on shared services. So I guess I want to think when we get to that point of having things that we want to share out about shared services, we need to control that so you're not overwhelmed. And also if people think they can just circumvent the local Board of Health and go straight to you for a different answer, like kids or something, using different parents. But anyway, just a little heads up on that.
Carrie, did you have a follow-up?
Just thank you for raising that, Kay. Okay, Daryl, sorry. I think it's an important question that we need to continue talking about, of sort of how do we represent this to the community? I know it's come up in the past. So for example, Medfield, when Jen Gattern started covering the Maven daily checks for Medfield, there was a suggestion from staff and others that that we ought to be that Medfield wanted to put the Charles River and the public health nurse information on the Medfield website. And, we're like, no, that's, that's not the purpose of it. But it underscored a question for us of how do we explain this relationship? And we need to be consistent about it across the communities. So I think that's a great and important point. And would love the advisory board guidance and thoughts on how we approach this. We'll put it on our future agendas.
Yeah, just to clarify, that was a Medfield resident who thought it should be on the website before they talked to accept a phone call from somebody. That wasn't the Board of Health or anybody else.
Right, yeah, no, yeah, well, right. I mean, we got a request from Nancy to
Yes.
to add the
Yes.
information. She was pretty clear that that was the way it should be. So sounds like maybe the resident persuaded her. Yeah, but it's I think that, that question of how do we explain this relationship across all the towns is important, that we all agree on how to do that so that we're not, getting in your way. But we're available if there's something useful that that you want to make sure that folks are aware of from Charles River on the website.
Thank you, Carrie and Daryl and Kay, for all of your thoughts so far. Does anyone else have any thoughts or feedback on either this particular piece of the conversation or any of the other goals and objectives that we've covered so far? Okay, and then I'll just keep going. And so we've discussed hoarding, and so that brings us down here to increasing capacity in septic and sewer. So right now, I don't think this has changed at all either. I think everything that you'll see in these sections is the same. We've just added year 2 here and included the shared services coordinator and assistant manager here to work on some of this. And the second one here is to explore regulation and enforcement of solid waste facilities or transfer stations. And one of the things that we have here is tasking the environmental health working group with identifying and clearly outlining what the health department role is in these situations. And that's happening in year 1. And I think that's already kind of sort of in the works with the environmental health working group is what I've heard. And so I think that there's already a lot of progress being made there, which is lovely. Any feedback on those parts?
Can I just make one small? So when it says explore capacity, increase capacity for water and sewer, septic and sewer, if we can just say
Yes.
septic and sewer inspection. I don't want, so my eyes are, okay, this is a public document. Somebody's gonna be looking at it and somebody to say, look they're gonna expand, they're gonna start trying to put sewer in our other communities. That's not what we're doing. So try not to work against ourselves when we can. Thanks.
Actually,
Yeah, that's a great addition.
is there a reason the word sewer is actually in there? Like, we don't do sewer inspections. It would be like on-site wastewater, Title V. Maybe there's some different verbiage we could use there. Unless someone,
Yeah.
I don't know if there was a specific reason the word sewer was included.
No, I'm open to other languages. I'm sure other folks are. Do you have a suggestion?
Maybe either Title V or on-site wastewater. Does anyone else feel differently?
And do we still want to keep septic too, Sam? So septic and Title V on-site wastewater.
I think that's now redundant and you could remove
Okay,
septic.
so just Title V. Perfect.
Yeah, and Title V is the number 5, the match with Mass DEP.
Good call, Daryl.
Very confusing. There is
Thank you,
another
Daryl.
important Title V out there, but it's not septic.
Thank you. All right, so we've now got it to increase capacity in Title V on-site wastewater inspection services. And I will change that. There's a couple of other places in here where it's septic sewer, so I'll make sure that that's consistent across. Okay, any other thoughts? Thank you, Sam. That's really helpful. Okay, then I will move into the last goal, which is supporting communities in adoption of tobacco-free generation proposal. This I don't think has, okay. Oh, and looks like we've got Ed here too.
The solid waste facility, I think, is that the term used? Solid waste
Yes.
facilities and or transfer stations. Do we have, what is a solid waste facility that isn't a transfer station in our communities? Is there something other than that?
That's a great question that I will toss back to this group. Or should we just be using one of these phrases?
In Sherborne, we just have a transfer station.
Same with Dover.
Same in
I
Medfield.
know
Needham, does it feel appropriate to just do transfer stations then? Or are you also dealing with solid waste facilities?
We only have transfer stations. A
Perfect.
transfer station.
So I think that language is an artifact, or is an artifact of the capacity assessment. I think those pieces are clumped together, but if it's not applicable to us, that's great.
one
And can I
expansion-
ask for sorry,
No, go ahead.
I'm curious, so I know that there have been, there's been, discussion, so there's been, dumpster regulations and trash hauler discussion of trash hauler regulations. Are folks interested in including that in, this as a, question to be explored, or do they just want to look at transfer stations?
I was thinking the waste hauler issue that apparently is a state level, see, I don't even know enough about this. State level regulation that we are supposed to overseeing the vehicles that transport materials through our town, even if not picking up in our town. So that I would like to understand. So that might be the hauler issue, expand it beyond transfer station. But I don't know enough about that.
Yeah, and I think to that point, Daryl, maybe we added in as something that we need to start exploring in year 1 and year 2. And I think, the objective here was just to have the environmental health working group identify what the public health department's role is in transfer stations. And so maybe we kind of build that out to also include what the role with the hauler issue is and what that looks like.
And Arissa,
I'm
you
only
work
getting that from one of the surveys that we filled out that asked, are you inspecting or issuing licenses, whatever it was, and I thought, no, didn't know that.
We are working on some of those things right now in the environmental health work group. So we're currently taking a deeper dive to figure out what exactly everyone needs to be doing around those areas.
Beautiful.
So then,
And I think
it makes sense to include it in this document.
yes.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
And I think there maybe are two questions, because there's the what are we supposed to do, but then my understanding from at least hearing about conversations in Needham in the past has been kind of what can we do, or can we do anything, or is there something that we do about dumpster permits? Is there something we do about regulating trash haul company, right? So so I think, there's two pieces, right? And one is environmental health staff being able to inform on here's what the requirements are, and then is this are there other issues in the community that folks want to raise or experience that they want to share, that maybe there's something that's not covered as this is what you have to do, but we are troubled by it, or sorry, I'm thinking again, I'm kind of stuck on dumpster regulations and thinking that's been a issue in well, Needham just adopted new dumpster regulations, I think, and wondering if it's a common question. So, sorry, am I making sense here? I think there's the, what is our problem, you know, bigger picture, and then also what is the requirement?
Yes, I do
this
think
is-
that makes sense.
I think this
Go
is an
ahead, Daryl.
example.
Go ahead, Kay.
I think this isn't an example of how shared services has the potential to benefit us because it's an example of we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
I mean, we just happen to have redone our trash hauler regulations. I don't know what on earth motivated us to do that. I can't recall, but I think I think we're all I think of the blind men and the elephant, you know, that we're aware of trash hauler regs being an issue. What are we not aware of? What regulations have you all modified that we haven't? What do we not even regulate that we should be regulating? And this is it's this kind of work together that I think brings us all up.
And
Anyway.
on an aside, and on dumpster regulations, for my commercial industrial clients, that how they manage waste that is stored outside is a very big deal, but it's also covered under other types of regulations. So then there's that issue of how do you intersect with that? And I'd be happy to weigh in on that. We don't have a lot of that in Sherborne. Our businesses are so limited, but happy to share that information, especially for Needham and maybe Medfield a little bit more.
Lovely. Thank you everyone for your feedback on that. I will make adjustments, and then Sam, if it's okay, maybe I'll run it by you to make sure all the language makes sense and then send it back to the larger group so folks can take a look.
Sounds good.
Okay, perfect. I'm moving on to tobacco use prevention now, but please feel free to give me feedback on anything, whether it's the tobacco use prevention or anything ahead as we continue. I've not closed the conversation on the aforementioned goals and objectives. And so we said that the goal here was to support communities in developing or in adopting tobacco-free generation proposal. And so what we've kind of got here is draft and propose policies to local leadership. And what we figure is that in the first year, there's just going to be some group learning sessions. I think we heard last month that it might be helpful to hear, you know, Medfield might want to hear from Needham on what their experience was and so on and so forth. And so really the first year is just some group learning sessions, some conversations, figuring out what this might look like. Year 2 is scheduling maybe some community meetings, town halls, feedback sessions to start to get larger support from the community for these proposals. And then finally, later in year 2, we've also got some scheduling of cross-municipality sessions to start to discuss early challenges and successes and how to push this forward in a positive way. And so really just kind of some groundwork stuff is happening here in the first 2 years. Any thoughts here? Okay.
I would like to advocate for using the term nicotine-free as opposed to tobacco-free.
I see a lot of head nods.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Kay. I'll make that change throughout. Carrie?
I think the way that we have the sort of the activities described feeds back into that question of what is shared services doing for this. So when we say schedule community meetings, town halls and feedback sessions, you know, is that something that the communities are anticipating shared services play an active role in, or are they thinking of advancing the issue in their individual community and you know, using shared services knowledge and the advisory board discussions to inform how they proceed with it. Because this reads a little bit like, reads a little bit like it's an initiative of shared services as opposed to an individual municipal initiative. That could just be my lens.
I would agree that it might come across that way, but I am thinking that since these would be local regulations that we would have to present before our towns, that's really up to us. But I am looking forward to being able to collaborate through this group to know how to address it, and also if collectively or even partially we agree that we want to pursue this in our towns, to be able to then share that at the meetings with others would be helpful.
And I want to be clear, I'm not saying we don't want to do the work. I'm trying to be respectful of the individual community responsibility and not
Of course.
step in, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree
I
that
want to
you
be
for that.
respectful of resources in the shared services. Otherwise, I'd love for you to step in and do it all, but
I think in reality, it might be more helpful for shared services to put its energy into enforcement and monitoring, enforcement, surveillance, whatever you want to call it.
There you go. Right. Right, so kind of exploring that, what would that look like? How would, how could the shared services inspection capacity take on that enforcement piece? Thanks, Kay.
Any other thoughts on this goal or any of the others?
Is it okay to say support communities in adoption of nicotine free? Is every community pursuing that, or are we yeah, Medfield, I see your head shaking no, Kathy.
Yeah, not at this time. The Board of Health did not want to take that up.
And I would say for us that we are taking it on, and I think it's likely that we'll adopt a regulation within the next couple of months, 3 months maybe. So it may be a point for us, but I also think we should be, as an organization, the shared services organization should be promoting this, supporting our members and moving forward with this.
Yeah.
So.
and I don't think
so-
the Board of Health in Sherborne is going to be taking this on too soon, because we have too many other things going on. And I like the idea. The one thing we have never had the capacity to do was to do the inspections where underage buyers are sent in.
Yeah.
So inspections are fine with us, but that last piece is just something we don't have the expertise or the access to people to do it effectively. So yeah.
So does this look like maybe changing to support communities in laying the groundwork for adoption of the nicotine-free generation, or in doing, the research or something along those lines, so that we can acknowledge that some folks are in an aspirational phase of like being a part of the shared group learning, while others maybe are actually taking this on in this current year? Okay. So I'll make some of those language changes and play around with some of this to kind of account for those two stages that we're at here.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's great, so that, other communities that maybe aren't quite there, the more communities around us that do it, I think is a real boon to, show that this is important. Other people were able to do it. So that's great.
Perfect. Thank you all for that feedback. Any other feedback on any of the other goals, objectives, timeline for owners? Gary, I felt a chuckle.
Yeah, no, yes, yes, you read me well. I'm just thinking, yes, this is definitely, this is one of those circumstances of, yeah, we get it now, and in 6 months, we won't remember how we got a word or whether we really meant it. So I think that's why I'm kind of pushing on these nuanced comments to make sure that it's reflecting where we are. And I hope that everybody else feels the same, kind of, yeah, this really does make sense.
I think so. Any other feedback on the goals and objectives while I switch my screen here back to our slides? Okay, then I'm just going to keep on moving.
You know what? I'm sorry, keeping on moving
No,
and
don't
seeing
be
the
sorry.
faces. I think am I wrong, or was there not an objective that specifically relates to public health nursing capacity?
There is not.
And this
Would
is
we
all
like to-
built on kind of our base, all of these were built on our conversations and our, strengths, weaknesses, and so forth. So it didn't rise in any of our previous conversations. Okay.
Right, correct. I think the thing that we heard most about public health nursing was specifically where we were talking about that buddy system. And we heard how well it was going, bringing on the nurses and having the additional internal support, and being able to lean into shared services for, an additional colleague that knows what they're doing, that is doing the same work, even though there might not be 2 nurses in one municipality. And I think that's actually how we built out the objective about having a buddy system for onboarding. And I think that is the most about what we heard from the public health nursing. Do we feel like we need to build out that conversation more?
Well, I
Yes,
would
I'm
say
seeing
yes.
Issues.
Go ahead, Daryl.
Oh, I was just going to say, it seems like the issues we've just gone over are a little more aspirational. And I feel like the public health nursing is underway to some degree, but maybe that's just my perspective.
And Kay, were you going to say something?
Well, I certainly think that we have work to do as a group of municipalities in the area of building out public health nursing. But whether that's shared services work or it's work at the level of the individual municipality, I don't know, but I think that shared services can play a role in, I don't know if strategic planning is the right term, but in planning an approach to solving the problem of the deficits in public health nursing in our communities. I mean, I'm feeling in Dover that we're in good shape right now, but I don't know about Medfield and Sherburne because they're I don't know that they have what they need, and they certainly don't have enough coming from their municipalities to support public health nursing the way that I feel like we do in Dover, and certainly Needham does.
Yeah,
So
Medfield's the opposite of in good shape. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, we hope to get there, and I think shared services is going to be really helpful, and when we have new people on board.
Yeah, I do think
So,
Medfield and Sherborne are facing similar unfilled positions and balance
So-
for both.
I mean, I raised it because I know it's a priority for our communities, you know, wanting there to be existing services, trying to figure out how they're paid for, trying to figure out what the services are. And you know, if this is our 5-year strategic plan, it seems like if it's something that's important to us, we might want to have something, some objective related to it, some goal related to it. I don't know if it's that we don't. I don't know if it was a case of sort of not knowing what we don't know, or like you said, Kay, or what. But I mean, a simple goal might be, you know, continuing to explore public health nursing needs and capacities in each town, and you know, identifying ways to right size it, or something like that. I see you nodding, Kay. I'm kind of.
Yeah, I think that, it's hard to be more specific than that, because I think we need to talk, as you were talking a minute ago, I was thinking, you know, I feel good about what we have in Dover right now, but we do need to be connected to other communities, because we need to have the ability to be flexible at times about, you know, if one community has a great need, suddenly we need to be able to support each other. So I don't see the answer as quite as being that every municipality should be independent of the others and have all that it needs to be right-sized. We need to be right-sized, and we need to have connections with each other that allow us to work optimally. But to be more specific than that is impossible at this point.
Agree.
Yeah, I like your wording, Carrie, to continue to assess, you know, capacity, and because ours will hopefully change in the near future, you know,
Right.
as people are hired into the positions. But again, I think we'll benefit greatly from shared services and the mentoring process. And
To
And
Gail or Jen, do you want to add anything to what I said? I'm talking for the nurses, which is always a little risky.
If I can just add, I think, you know, at the state level, the UMass Public Health Nurse Consultants are really working on standardization of practice. In fact, there was just a poll sent out, or a survey, asking public health nurses, you know, what do you do on a daily basis? It's like a 20-minute survey. And I think that will help all towns as we're sort of looking at public health nursing overall, and the different areas that encompasses. So I would just add that I think that's being worked on at a larger level, and hopefully each municipality will feel the impact of that.
So I think bringing in so it's our own assessment, and, you know, using the, you know, connecting with the nurse consultancy program
I'll say
for information
Sherborne.
as well.
So for Sherborne, this is the first time that we've had a public health nurse
Right.
engaged in the town at this kind of a level. And it's very interesting to see how it's blossomed in town thus far. And it's just been a short period of time, but strengthening ties within the community, et cetera. So Kathleen, I mean, we share scale with other towns, so it'd be interesting to hear what additional needs you have and how we might work that out so that everyone's needs are met at some level.
And I think, sorry, am I cutting you off, Kathy?
No.
Okay.
No.
I think as you talk about this, I think maybe we're talking about some evaluation as well, because there's a need for demonstration of value and impact. Right, we're looking at like to say to Tim, we talk about outcomes versus outputs, right? Because as you know, when you have positions and maybe you want to increase funding for them, or you want to change the way they're structured, you need to have some data. Enthusiasm doesn't win the day, and you know, yay, they're so great, we love them, doesn't win the day. We need to have some kind of data. So maybe that's part of our work is collectively we can all talk about what were the things you'd want to know for demonstrating impact and value if you decide to pursue additional funding within your own communities. Make sense?
Thank you all so much for that. I will work on adding some of what we just discussed about the public health nursing work into the strategic priority of departmental capacity and kind of building that out there. And then I will obviously send it back to you all and we can nitpick it again and kind of see where to go from there. Does that sound good? Okay. I will do that along with all the other changes that we discussed ahead of our next chat. I'm going to quickly move over into some key takeaways from the interviews that we've done so far. I think we have interviewed at this point about 10 people, which is great. So thank you so much for the time that you've given us. Let me put this in big mode so everyone can see it really clearly. Thank you so much for your time. I know that you're all incredibly busy, so we really appreciate it. We are not done with interviews yet. We do still have a couple of scheduled, and we're working on a couple of like e-introductions and seeing where that leads us. And so I will probably still be sending some emails. If you haven't had an interview and you have the time, I would love to chat with you. 20 to 30 minutes would be lovely. But if you're in a big rush, I can probably do it in 15. I can talk fast when needed, and I would appreciate any of your time. So just like to dive in a little bit to give us all an idea of kind of what we're hearing and where we're at with the interviews. First, I just want to say there are tons of areas of alignment. I think that you all probably know this, maybe objectively, but there were tons of areas of alignment. I heard a lot of similar things about what's going well and the things that are valued in the shared services arrangement. And I think that the big undertones were that everyone that we have talked to so far really believes that everybody has a shared mission and dedication to public health, providing quality services. Everyone is incredibly impressed by everyone else that's in this group here, and that there's tons of amazing talent and there's so many great backgrounds that really benefit the public health district, and that bringing all of that to the table really is a powerhouse. And we also heard that everyone is incredibly excited kind of as time goes forward to start utilizing the shared services arrangement to leverage expertise, onboard staff with support from peers and seniority with expertise, and to cross-train staff. And that was great to hear because I think that a lot of these like bottom 3 points in particular align with what we have outlined in the strategic plan, talking about leveraging one another's expertise and doing buddy systems and cross-training staff. So I think that that is great. Next, talking about some areas of tension. And I think the great thing here is that even in the areas of tension, I think everyone was pretty much perfectly aligned on the areas of tension. And I think that one of them is it can be really hard to sell a shared services arrangement to town leadership and to other folks that aren't really deep into the public health world like us. And I think that that can be because of a couple of things. Carrie, you just mentioned kind of use case, like we're still kind of developing our use case and showing that this has a great return on investment. And I think the other piece kind of ties into the second bullet, and that's that everybody already has incredibly tight schedules. And so you're adding meetings and work and new priorities to already really constrained resources and folks with low capacity. And so I think that sometimes that argument can get complicated. And then I'm going to move on to the next slide, which is just areas of aspirations really quickly, and then I'll pause and kind of get some additional feedback. And so we heard from lots of folks that they really aspire for the day that the Charles River Public Health District, where each municipality is fully staffed. It seems like the group really has a great lofty dream of once everyone's fully staffed, you know, it allows the group as a whole to shift from how do we fill these day-to-day needs? How do we keep afloat to really thinking about some of the aspirational things, thinking about the 5-year strategic plan, thinking about the nicotine-free generation policies, And also relieving some of the burden of prioritizing coming to the meetings, doing the activities, right? If everyone's fully staffed, then people get to focus more on really being present and being here. We also heard lots of excitement in the aspiration about starting to work together and cross-authorizing staff, developing shared policies, and starting to share some of the day-to-day operational needs in a way that helps alleviate some of the stress in different municipalities, and to just continue and learn and grow together. Overall, I think we heard so many positive things from the interviews so far. Folks are incredibly excited and I think energetic about the potential of the shared services arrangement and what the strategic plan means and what this growth means. And so I'll pause here to just like do a temperature check, see if anybody has any thoughts, comments, concerns, or questions for me. And then just offer another shameless plug that I would love to interview you if you have not been interviewed yet.
I'm glad to hear that we're somewhat aligned. Very reassuring.
That is a good feeling.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll say for shared services staff, I mean, I think it's great for us to hear that the communities are aligned, that things are, you're pleased with how things are structured and going, that's important for us. We try, but always good to know that we're hitting the mark or striving for the same mark at least.
Okay, thank you all. I'll keep moving. I know we're getting close to time here. So thank you all again for your time on the interviews. We really just wanted to kind of keep you appraised to what's going on so far. As more interviews come in, if we see any skews and things, we'll kind of re-up that for everybody, but just keeping you up to date on what we have so far. And so next, and this is kind of our last topic of discussion today, is reporting needs. And so for those of you who have done interviews, you've kind of started to hear this from me. I think we've been starting to address these questions. But one of the things that I think has come up in a couple of different capacities is, what are your reporting needs? And I think that there are a couple of different ways that this has been being discussed. And I think one of them is in the goals and objectives. We've been talking about communication and what does communication look like within this group, but then also from this group to the advisory board, or this group to the selectmen, or this group to the state representatives, right? We kind of saw that. And also internally. So as we develop the strategic plan, how will this group report on progress internally, like to one another, externally to the community? How will you report to the advisory board, to municipal government, to the community at large? And so I think part of this conversation is that no one's looking to create extra work for anyone. And so, we've heard that I think the shared services arrangement team is reporting to Needham once a month. I know that the regional public health nurse is also reporting to the advisory board once a month. There's obviously grant reporting needs. And so, what is the efficient way to capture all this data, bring it all together in a way that's helpful for you all, that you think would support your work? And so I'll pause there and just kind of open up the floor to this conversation.
I'm gonna start with sort of I'll say the specifics. So right now, we prepare a monthly report, that reports, accomplishments for the programs. That goes to the Needham Board of Health, because shared services is hosted here in Needham. And then once we complete that report, we also share it out to the advisory board. Our thought, besides just wanting to share the information with you, was that it might be a resource that could be used in your individual community packet, Board of Health communication as a informational point, or maybe to town leadership. I think we're kind of in a unique position with the regional public health nurse right now, because there's levels of activity in one community versus another. So, you know, her activity, her specific activity for Medfield is different, right? That doesn't those details don't get included in the monthly report that we provide, but it's a question of, well, how do we share that if there is specific activity, how does that get shared to the community? And then I think it's what's useful. Are you getting anything that's useful now? And you know, is there something that you're getting that you don't want, or things that you need more of? I think this isn't necessarily we're going to answer this forever. I think it's like a continuing conversation, but you know, we certainly want to produce something that's useful to you all.
I'm more thinking about, is there reporting that individual towns need to be doing into shared services? So shared services is certainly producing reports. I'm not, you know, Board's not producing reports in the other direction. So I don't know if that's a piece of this, and I can't answer that either right now or where that might be heading. But what came to mind for me.
Oh, and I think, sorry, I always do that, but I think the other thing would be, you know, is the reporting on the progress on our goals from the funder, you know, does that work for you? Do you want to hear it less? Do you want to hear it more frequently? You know, if that's effective or appropriate, that's great, but happy to tweak, happy to adjust.
Okay.
Carrie, are you talking about the multicolored spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no ego here. I have no.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, I don't know I don't know what to say. I like it, and I spent a lot of time reading it the last time it came. But functionally, it's hard to use just because it's so big. But I don't know. I mean, that's just a tweak, but I thought it was interesting. So, and so I don't know. I'm not used to it enough. I think I'd like to use it a few more, you know, look at it a few more times and give you more precise feedback, but.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, I agree. It's big, you know, and so I balance the tension of I need to make sure that y'all are aware of the progress we're making on all of our deliverables. That's our contract with the state and our contract with you. It is long and it is a little I don't know, like it's a little well, it's complex, right? It is a complex worksheet doing a lot of different things, and trying to figure out how to distill the important points for you all is a challenge. So it sounds like maybe, you know, we need to play with that a little bit. Because I certainly don't want to waste anybody's time or have people, you know, feel like they're being tortured by just watching watching us roll through a spreadsheet.
Well, and are they turning off enough that they're not reading the stuff that really is important? And I guess what I'm wondering is, could there be a Cliff Notes version of it?
Yep. Thank you. we'll make noted. And I think, part of it, Kate, like you're saying, I know I haven't used it enough. I think it's the same for us. It's been getting used to using it. And as we've gotten used to it, now starting to figure out how to distill. But heard you'd like some distilling, we can work on that.
I mean, if just in my imagination, I could see if there could be a way to have a distilled version that included links to more information about that topic if you wanted to a
Yeah.
deeper dive.
Okay.
Because what I may want to know more about, it's not necessarily what others may want to know more about. So
Agree.
you don't want to
Yep.
exclude anything.
Yep.
Ed,
I think
did
you're
you have something to add?
suggesting, I think you're suggesting an executive summary, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a more professional term than Cliff Notes.
They both work. That's good. Thanks, Ed. Yeah, I think that's right. Great. Thanks.
And Daryl, did you have something else to add?
Just right. I had been thinking about there's a lot in there, and how to not make more work for you. That's rearranging information, but even something that was just here are the I was trying not to use hottest topics because that again wouldn't be as professional. So the intensively active topics that you're working on, something like kind of that cutting edge, what's new, what's the focus of your activities at the time, in case people ask us, and also for our boards
Right.
and community,
Right.
just to know that this is the major push right now. Here's
Right.
another one. Might be easier than the generic, but again, don't want to add to the work.
Yep.
And I don't know if you need to keep the spreadsheet anyway, just for reporting to the state, and
Yes.
therefore to pluck out just a few highlights or something.
Yep.
Not sure.
Great. Appreciate it. We'll work on that.
Any other thoughts or feedback on reporting? Okay, well, we're coming on to our last sort of 5 or maybe even 4 minutes at this point. I don't want to keep anyone over time. So I just want to quickly jump into next steps and give you like a quick overview of what we're going to be doing in the next month and then what will happen at our next meeting. And so for the next month, we, BME, will be finalizing the goals and objectives. I will incorporate all the additional feedback that we gathered from you all today and kind of send that back out after I run it by a couple of people. And then I'll send it back out to the larger group. BME is also working on finalizing the sort of like actual strategic plan in and of itself as the whole document. And so hopefully we will sort of debut that at our next month's meeting. And we will also work to schedule some more final interviews. And then in our next meeting, we will kind of have these final goals and objectives. We will also have some performance metrics to look at. And then, like I mentioned before, hopefully some finalized data on the interviews. By that point, at the end of May, we'll be done conducting interviews and then also working forward with the strategic plan to just gather some more input there as we kind of continue to look through that. And then the only thing that you guys have to do at this point in time is to just accept my interview schedule requests and keep accepting my emails if I'm asking for more interviews. And then in the coming weeks, we will send you a more final draft of the goals and objectives to look at ahead of our 5th meeting. As always, it was so nice chatting with you. Our hour and a half always flies by really quickly. So thank you so much. I will turn it back to Carrie so that she can close out the meeting. But if anything else comes up on goals and objectives or reporting in general, any other thoughts that you want to share with us, please share that. And then I actually saw Megan come off mute, which reminded me that I do have one more housekeeping item. And that is, when is your FPHS sort of like data share out?
That's a good question. I don't think we've got that scheduled with Manise yet. I don't know if we were gonna put it on, and we were talking with her with Benfield. I'll get back to you.
Okay, perfect. And then if it would be helpful, I think it would be helpful for us as we're kind of preparing the final strategic plan. Carrie, if you would like to invite me and or Megan to that meeting and we can kind of sit in and see our points of alignment and what that looks like, I think that'd be a great kind of finishing touch on this.
Yep.
And then Megan, I didn't mean to steal your thunder if you have anything else.
I know. Yeah, the last thing I was just gonna say was that you know, as Arissa's pointed out, we have 2 meetings left. Our last meeting is like June 28th or 26th, or you know, something like very much at the end of the year, of the fiscal year, and the goal is to you know, have this all wrapped up then by June 30th. So our intent is to have the content of the plan like basically done at the May meeting, so we can all really agree on the narrative of the plan and what's in there. And so Arissa will send you a draft ahead of time. If you can take the time to look at that before the meeting, so we make sure we address anything that you want changed in that May meeting, and then we can take that to our marketing team to make it look pretty and designed and so forth. And be able to get something to you by the end of June, because if we wait to do that until the June meeting, you know, we'll have like a day to get that all done. So just to give you a heads up there, and then you know, imagine we've been talking with Carrie on kind of what the tracking and implementation of this will look like moving forward, and so that's something that will you know, there may be kind of some tweaks to metrics and things like that that can be done in that spreadsheet, that tracking system that's not, you know, in the full narrative document, if that makes sense. Yeah. And we can continue to kind of have this reporting conversation as well, and can help you work on building out reporting templates and things like that. That again, those templates obviously aren't all going to be in the narrative document. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Megan. And thanks, Arissa. Okay. Thanks for another great meeting. I find these meetings to go really well as well. So we appreciate your work moving us through. And I am going to ask now for a roll call. Right. Oh, so I have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn?
Do I have a second? Second. So adjourn from Kathy Thompson, and a second from Kay Peterson. Roll call vote. Dover. Vote to
Yes.
adjourn.
Yes.
And Medfield.
Yes.
And Needham.
Yes.
And Sherburne.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you all. We'll see you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend.
Bye.